head coach of Finland's national team, the Finnish Bears. Matt Jenkinson, an Australian who played semi-professionally in England and Australia, told us about how he came to where he is now, where the game is in Finland now, and where it is headed over the coming months and years. Did you have an overt and explicit ambition to go on and be a professional cricketer? And if so, what did you do at this stage in your late teens, early 20s to try and make that a reality?
I came to a point in my career because I was playing both Aussie rules and cricket, and it got to the stage where I was not a bad footballer. I broke my hand, and that interrupted a pre-season. And I think someone at the club had a word to me and sort of said, look, you can't play both anymore. Sort of the times were changing. So I was told to sort of make a decision, what's it going to be? I wasn't enjoying the Aussie rules as much at the time, unfortunately. So I put my heart into cricket. It was my fourth game in the first 11, and we're playing against the second top team. Came in when the team were not in a great position, and was made a century, 127 not out, and we won the game. So that all of a sudden was, well, hang on, I can compete at this level now. Having an opportunity, it was quite a big thing at the time. As we know, that period in Australian cricket was incredible. To take someone's spot in Victoria at that time, being an all-rounder. I think the all-rounder was Ian Harvey, and at the time he was arguably the best one-day bowler in the world at that time. Are you going to take someone like that? You're going to take his spot? It's going to be very difficult. But you never know. Good performances or whatever. I think getting that consistency at that level, that's where you sort of have to stand out. And unfortunately, I wasn't consistent enough, I don't think, at that stage.
You mentioned Ian Harvey, some other names you mentioned. Any others from your time playing in and around Victoria? Big names that people would instantly recognise that you played with.
Yeah, I think. I suppose if you asked me who was the best leg spinner I played against, I would say Warney. But the best leg spinner I faced was Abdul Qadir. He came over for a season and absolutely dominated our domestic season. So that was an amazing experience. I had the pleasure of seeing what it was like to get bowled by him. I think it was one of his 4 or 5 types of wrong-uns that he bowled. But I was pretty happy. The second innings, I was not out. So, and that's probably because I couldn't run at that stage. So I was injured, I think, at the time. But yeah, incredible. These are the sort of caliber that you play against. One of my sort of favourite moments, I think, was playing against Merv Hughes. And that was the thing with this cricket. You looked in the paper on the Friday morning to see who you're going to be up against. So if they weren't playing for Australia or their state, they'll be playing against you in their grade. It could have been Matty Elliott, Paul Rifle, faced Damien Fleming as well. But as I said, Merv, that was a pretty special moment. Quite surreal, actually. Watching this guy all the time on the TV, and then all of a sudden, cut him for 4, and he wasn't too happy and told me so. But just to have a beer with him after the game, absolutely, fantastic. Listen to the stories and stuff, and it's a big part of what still has to happen with cricket, and meeting, having a beverage with the opposition and learning about the game. Just really fond memories. And he was the sort of guy. I think I played against him 2 seasons later again, and he still remembered me from then. So, and apparently it was my shout. So yeah, great stories.
Terrific. Abdul Qadir was doing the rounds in Victoria, or Melbourne, wasn't he? Into his 40s, I reckon.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, you'd say his prime, wouldn't you? He was absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, they produced a wicket that had plenty of grass on it, for the turn. But he won our the Ryder Medal. He was just another class. I think. Just remember how fast he was through the air and the dip that he got, and then obviously the turn was phenomenal. So unfortunately, I didn't face Warney. I was next in, and I think that was his first game back after his first shoulder operation. Actually, that was a good win to our boys. But obviously it was good to see him back at that stage, and I think he only bowled leggies. So Maybe that's why we got stuck into him.
What took you to the UK then?
The UK was, your opportunity to develop as a cricketer. That's what it's purely used for. My first season was in Yorkshire, playing in the Central Yorkshire League. A great club called Altoffs. I was in some good company, some previous people. Dean Jones played there. Big shoes to fill. That was a really tough environment. First time overseas, to be playing in that sort of standard cricket there as well, where every club had an overseas player. And they were quality. The wickets there, were they were wet. Totally different conditions. So it was a real leveler, but you had to learn, adapt, and graft. And that was fantastic development, I think, particularly for my bowling, just because of the sheer amount of cricket that you played there. At the same time, 97, my brother was in down south in Canterbury and Kent. I went down to visit him and saw the ground and the wicket that he was playing on, which was, phenomenal. So it's been used as a Kent second 11 ground at Polo Farm. So I went there in 2000 and really enjoyed that, and went back again in 2002. Pretty much stayed there from then, I think. It's where I met Annie, my wife, and life began in the UK. So I didn't end up going back to Australia, I guess. So that was the end of my sort of cricket aspirations to go higher, I think, at that stage.
So when you went to England, was it specifically as a club pro?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yep. So the overseas player. So pretty much every club has one. So you play that 6 months, play cricket there, go back for, the Aussie summer. Some guys were going back and forward all the time just to make that difference, do everything they can to try to get to the top.
I mean, I know I've played at clubs where we had overseas pros and they didn't just do cricket. They had the odd job here and there. Anything you got up to in your off time in Yorkshire or Kent?
I'm a carpenter and joiner by trade. So with a working holiday visa, so you're able to do some part-time work there.
2003 T20 started in England, and you mentioned there that your style was what wanted in Australia. How would you describe your style back then?
Yeah, it comes back from the backyard. I think I could hit a straight six, so hit the bowler straight back over his head. Hit the back fence on the full six and not out. So, there were certain shots that you played, and I think, I just like to give it a whack. It's sort of, it wasn't correct at the time necessarily. It's great when it's coming off, but if you got out, it was extremely frowned upon. So I would say in my playing days in Australia, I could play all around the ground and still, hit the ball over the top, and play some of those shots. I wasn't afraid of doing that. So, example, in a 100 over day, 1 second 11 game, I was 100 at the lunch break. So, that's the first 20, 30 overs, I was already 100. So imagine if I, batted the whole day, but unfortunately didn't. But then in the UK, it was a case of, the wickets being, or the conditions were, conducive to seam, swing with the Duke's ball. And, the talent of the bowlers, it was only a matter of time before they got you. So, I just sort of had the mantra, I'm going to get them before they get me. So anything that was in my slot, it would go. I wasn't going to die wondering. I think, I sort of made my mind up with that, and that was a big thing. Commit to what you believe in and back yourself, and have a crack. And I was quite successful at that in the UK. So
it's interesting. We'll come back to that in a moment when we're talking about the style of cricket being played by the likes of Finland these days. But just on one more point about your experience in Australia and England, people nowadays, cricketers professionally, are probably fitter than they've ever been in their life. But I mean, was there still a firm accent on the ability to stay fit and healthy back then? Because the amount of cricket people played when you were at and around the top level was far more than it is now.
Yeah, I think an example was you would train Tuesday, Thursday. You'd be training for a couple of hours There was no standing still. You're either batting, bowling. If you weren't, you were fielding, or you were working on your batting, doing throwdowns. They just had the facilities there to, accommodate all that. But when you walked off, at the end of the day, and mind you, this was, in a time when, I was, a carpenter and joiner, and, so I was working, 5 days a week, out in the Aussie heat or whatever, building houses, doing extensions, those sort of things. So getting to training then, I was pretty knackered by the time I got to training, finished training, and then you get into the club rooms, and the done thing was the guys strip off, whack their running gear on, and go for a 3K run. So that was the culture that was there at the time. And I even remember getting back from that and seeing Julian Weiner, he was pumping out 50 push-ups, after coming back from a run. And you just thought, my God, one of the the more senior members of the club, there he is pumping out 50 push-ups after coming, after training for a couple of hours. That was just normal. With the overs that we bowled as well, I think in the juniors, I think I can't remember, like 7 or 8 overs in the morning, and then in the seniors I bowled 20 overs in the day. So there was no restrictions in my time then. So yeah, you were pretty fit. I think I realise that now, how fit we were compared to what the guys are playing now in Finland, especially just T20 format.
We all know that life takes over. Career aspirations that we once might have had get put on the back burner a bit. But was there a point when you were in England after you'd met your wife and your thoughts turned to having a family, when you thought, okay, well, that's cricket playing days over? Or
I think I was there that long in the UK that I was English qualified, and married to a Finnish wife, being part of the EU, that I could have been picked up by a county club there. I was eligible. So I think for when the T20 sort of stuff started, and when they had I think it was like a Champions League type thing, that the teams would progress through the different competitions. There was big money involved in it, and my style of sort of play, which was in Australia at the time, was frowned upon. But now it's all that's what it's about, really, or the way the game's going. So I sort of sent my cricketing CV off to Kent, who I thought they were sort of advertising a trial day. And like Jimmy Adams was the head coach there at the time. So I got an invitation to come down. Unfortunately, I wasn't interested in any of the 4-day stuff. It just would have been purely T20 stuff. And, some of the coaches sort of, they knew me there anyway, and knew what I was about. But unfortunately, it was they were looking for a fast bowler. So it was quite interesting. They had every wannabe fast bowler in the country there for a trial. So they just needed some suckers to to face them. I've been hit probably 4 or 5 times in the helmet in my whole career, and I think it happened twice there. So yeah, that was fun, bit of fun.